Hey guys, this is Mr. Harper again. We are on to chapter 3.3 or chapter 3, section 3. Okay, so we've had a good time this. Hopefully, you're doing this over the summer. If you're doing it right now, which is still part of the school year, that's great too. Okay, so in the last chapter, we worked on adding and subtracting integers, which is negative numbers. Well, multiplying them is no harder, especially if you have your calculator. Keep this handy. Make sure you got this calculator because this is the one that CSI uses and BSU uses and is pretty liked in the field. Of course, when you get to BSU, you have to have a better calculator, but I'm just talking about for me and my teaching stuff. Okay, so 3.3. So, multiplication and division. Okay, to multiply integers, when 5, I'm reading the top one, when 5 is multiplied by a sequence of decreasing integers, each product, which product is what you get when you multiply, that's your answer. It's the key word. Like sum is for math, difference is for um, uh, subtraction, and product is for multiplication. You have your quotient is the word for division, and we have gone over that a lot this year, and we'll probably go over it more. Okay, so when 5 is multiplied by a sequence of decreasing integers, each product decreases by 5. So let's go here and remember, I'm going to put my pen on. Remember, when you have 5, then you have these parentheses. That means 5 times whatever is in the parentheses. When you have 5 next to a variable, it means times 2. So by default, you're probably going to do times or multiply. So 5 times 3 equals 5. 5 times 2, which is 1 5 less, because instead of having 3 5s, you have 2 5s, is 10. 5 times 1 is 5, because you're going down another 5. 5 times 0 is 0, because you're going down another 5. The pattern can be continued so that 5 is multiplied by a sequence of negative numbers to maintain the pattern of decreasing by 5. The resulting products must be negative numbers, or just negative. So you do what's less than 0? Well, -1. So you go 5 times -1 is -5. 5 times -2 is -10. 5 times -3 is -15. 5 times -4 equals -20. This example illustrates that the product of positive number and a negative number is negative. This is one big thing you need to memorize. Your calculator will always give you the correct answer if you put the numbers in there right. So, when you times a negative by a positive, you get a negative number. It's different when you times a negative by a negative or divide a negative by a negative. But for right now, just remember a negative times a positive is going to be a negative number. So if I take 4 times -6, I'm going to get 24, negative 24, because it's timesing a negative by a positive. Just route that into your memory because that's kind of what I had to do. Okay, when -5 is multiplied by a sequence of decreasing integers, each product increases by 5. What is that? When Oh, so we're taking over here, we're doing negative 5 times 3 equals negative 15. Negative 5 times 2 equals negative 10. Negative 5 times these are all positives. Positive 1 is negative 5. Negative 5 times 0 equals 0. Now, the pattern can be continued um, so that negative 5 is multiplied by a sequence of negative numbers to maintain the pattern of increasing by 5. The resulting product must be positive. So a negative times a negative is going to be a positive. So we go negative 5 times negative 1 equals positive 5. Negative 5 times negative 2 equals positive 10. Negative 5 times negative 3 equals positive 15. Negative 5 times negative 4 equals positive 20. That's basically, I just have to rote memorize it. Memorize that two negatives equal a positive, which isn't always true with addition because if you're adding two negatives, you're going to get more negatives. But when you are doing multiplication, multiplying two negatives will equal a positive. Now, if you only have one negative, the number is going to be more negative. So let's read over this point of interest. Um, Operations with negative numbers were not accepted until the late 13th century. One of the first attempts to prove that the product of two negative numbers, is positive was made in the book Ars Magna by Girolamo. Well, in 1545. Wow. That's actually a long time in history to go without even knowing that a negative times a negative was a positive. Yeah. And there actually are some cultures. I don't believe the Mayans had a number for negative because they didn't need to worry about it. I don't think they had a number for zero either. So um, the pattern for multiplication shown above is summarized in the following rule for multiplying integers. Rule for multiplying two integers. Multiply two integers with the same sign. Multiply the absolute value, which remember is if you have 5 with two signs on it, whether this is negative or positive, it's going to be a positive number because all it's saying is you're moving 5 places from 0. So take the absolute value to multiply two integers with different signs, multiply by the absolute value of the factors. The product is negative. So basically what they're telling you the rule is if you're multiplying two numbers that are of the same sign, they're both negatives, just convert them to the absolute value, which would be positive. So negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. And if they're different, it would be negative 5 times positive 5, which would be negative 25. So, integrating technology to multiply negative 6 times negative 15 with your calculator, enter the following. It says 6 plus or minus, which I think you do the minus plus or minus first. So you would enter into your calculator. Let's get our calculators up. You would enter negative 6. Then you would hit the times button, times, and then you would enter negative 15. And your answer should be positive 90. And they show that on the examples. Okay, so, or actually the bottom one. So the top one is negative 4 times 12, which it should be it's right there. It's negative 48. And negative 6 times negative 15 is a positive 90. If either of those numbers hadn't been a negative, it would have been negative 90. Okay, how to 1. A product is an answer to multiplication problem. Remember that. I kind of went over that a little bit at the beginning. A product means multiplication. So if you're reading and it wants to know the product, hey, it's automatic multiplication. Okay, apply the concept. I'm going to try to go over this a little bit faster. Pause this and you guys do the problem, okay? It shows you what to do. Read through it and make sure that you are able to do it. If you need help, get help from somebody. If you need to highlight it and put it into a translator or actually, you probably need to talk it, but oh well. Just get somebody for help on the reading part. Okay, so the properties of multiplication presented in Chapter 1 hold true for integers as well as whole numbers. These properties are restated below. Okay, the multiplication property of 0. Any number times 0 is going to be 0. If you have negative 5 times 0, it's going to be 0. The multiplication property of 1. Whenever you multiply 1 by a number, you're going to have whatever number. The commutative property, negative 5 times negative 4 is the same as negative 4 times negative 5. You can exchange the numbers. The associative property, moving the parentheses from a times b to a times b times c is the same as a times b times c. I haven't worked with those a whole lot, but since I've been out of math. Okay, so I'm going to pause this and I'm going to let you guys go through it. Or you pause it so that you can go through it. Okay. Pause it and go through it. I'll go through the first one. Find negative 42 times positive 62. So you're taking a negative times a positive. So it's going to your product is going to be negative. So it's negative 2,604. Okay, and if you need to use your calculators, use your calculators. And when you're getting into math this big, it's simpler just to use the calculator. And you guys have made it all the way to chapter 3. Okay, let's pause it and make sure you get all of these. Pause it and make sure you get all of these. Rules for dividing two integers. Okay, rules for dividing two integers. To divide two integers with the same sign, divide the absolute value, which means these signs, okay, value of the number, the quotient, which is the answer to a division problem, is positive. So a negative divided by a negative will be a positive. To divide two integers with different signs, divide the absolute value of the numbers. The quotient is negative. So what it's telling you there is you do division same way you'd always do it, but if the signs are not the same, if you're dividing a negative by a positive or a positive by a negative, it's going to be a negative number. If you're dividing a positive by a positive, it's a positive. If you're dividing a negative by a negative, it's a positive. So again, here's the integrating technology, the exact same. I enter on my calculator 10, and then I hit the negative button, divided by 5, and the negative button, and it should be a positive 2, as it shows right here. And then up here it says negative 36 divided by positive 9, and that is negative 4. Okay, so I'm going to pause it here and let you guys work through this. It looks like it has the answers, so just work through this. Okay. Division property of 0 and 1. So if a does not equal 0, so it's 0 divided by a equals 0. Now, a divided by 1 equals a, so that's the property of 1. So if you have any number, say I have 4, and I divide it by 1, it is always going to be 4, because you're just making 4 pieces of 1. So the answer equals 4. You're dividing 4 up into one piece, which means you still have 4. So, and again, that is how you create any number into a fraction. You put a 1 underneath it. Now, if you divide, say, 4 divided by 0, you can't do that, because there is no way of dividing a whole number up into no pieces. That just doesn't work. Now, if you had 0 divided by 4, that is always going to equal 0. And we've studied that several times since we've been working on this. Okay, so I'm going to say pause it and do the math. I wish I could do more of it with you, but this is taking me a long time. I've spent probably 10 hours so far making these videos, but I want you guys to get up there in education. Pause it and do it. You pause it while I'm talking, and then you don't have to listen to me either. Okay. Pause it and do it. Maybe I'll do this one. Evaluate negative a divided by b for a equals negative 6 and b equals negative 3. So we're going to plug them in. we're going to go negative. Oh, see, right here it shows a negative and then a negative because that's showing this is a negative, but it's equal to -6. So it's a negative, -6. And b equals -3. So b doesn't have a negative next to it. So it's just a b equals -3. So now you would think, oh, I've got a negative, so I'm going to, so the answer will be a positive, but it's not because you have a double negative. So just put these to pluses. When you have a double negative, that ends up being a positive. So so it ends up being a +6 divided by a -3. That's where this over here is, this doesn't have a plus sign, but it was changed to a plus because of the two negatives. So you go 6 divided by -3. And your answer should be -2. And it might not seem easy, but if you guys can just memorize the process, and can memorize the process, that's the important thing. That's what I had to do. Okay, and you can always put it into your calculators. If you put, and see, let's go negative, or negative, let's go back, let's go negative, parentheses, -6, end parentheses, divided by -3. Your answer should be -2. Notice how I put negative parentheses -6 end parentheses, because that's very important that you enter the problems correctly to get a correct answer. You guys can always pause it and do all of these right now. Okay. Pause it and do all these. Oh, look at this. We are to the end of this exercise, which means we got through that one really fast. Remember, use your calculators. It was fast, and this, guys, I am putting you through a crash course in basically one summer, learning what you would learn in an entire year in college. Probably not an entire year, because I'm not going to put you through 16 chapters, which we're only on chapter 3 right now. So I think I'd get you up to chapter 4, maybe chapter 5, and we will do this. So, anyways, pause it and do all of these. Okay, so hopefully you did all those by now. If you need to, go back and redo them. Okay, so now we're doing this. Okay, so if you have to, okay, number 5, we have a -4 times a +6. Well, you're taking a negative times a positive. That brings the positive down to a negative. So it is 4 times 6, which would be 24, I think. 24, and then you just tack a negative sign onto it. 24, boom, tack a negative sign onto it. That easy. The next one over, actually, let's go to the number 7. Next one over, that'd just be -21. But this one here, you're doing a negative times a negative. So what does it say to do with a negative? You take -2 times -3, and you put absolute value, which means those numbers become positive. Okay, so then it just becomes 2 times 3, which is +6. That's as easy as it gets. And if you need to use your calculator, use your calculator. This is math. So, pause it. Hopefully you paused it in the last spot too and did all of them. If not, go back and finish them. Okay, so you're taking a negative times a negative. Okay, negative 7 times negative 34. I'm going to use my calculator because guess what? I don't want to do all the math. If I have a piece of paper out in front of me, I can do it. Usually, I don't want to. And you know what? It takes up a lot of extra time. And that's why when you get to college makes you use a calculator. Anyway, so pause it and we will go on. All right, pause it. 0 times negative 7 equals 0. That is put down the property. Okay, hey, it's got a 0 in it. Property is the 0 property. Okay, 1 times p equals p. Well, you're doing the multiplication property of 1. Because you're timesing 1 times p, and whenever you times 1 by anything, it's going to be the number that you times 1 by. Okay, so pause it, go on. All right. Pause it and go on. X equals negative y for x equals negative 3. So, and y equals negative 8. So that won't just be a negative 8. That'll be a negative 8 because you're already making 8, or the y is negative, but the y is worth a negative. So it would change it to a positive. So it'd be negative 3. Let's write this one out. Negative 3 times negative 8. So you turn these two into a negative, so then it would be negative 3 times positive 8. And you would say 3 times 8 is 24. Then you just tack the negative onto it. Again, you can do all this with your calculator if it suits you. Okay, pause it and we're going to go on. Okay, pause it and we're going to go on. Find the quotient of negative 700 and positive 70. Well, you're dealing with a negative and a positive, which is going to be a negative. And you're dividing it by 70, which means I think you take be negative 10, I think, because you'd be tacking the one more 0 onto 70, and it would be a negative. So the answer, I think there would be negative 10, but go ahead and make sure I'm right. Use your calculator. Okay, we're going on. All right. Pause it. We're going on. Oh, this says, is 0 a solution of the equation 0 equals a over negative 4? And yes, 0 divided by negative 4 would equal 0. So yes, that would work. 0 would work, because if you plugged 0 in for a, you took 0 divided by negative 4. And whenever you get to a problem like this and it says, is 0, just put 0 into the equation. But instead of saying a divided by negative 4, put 0 divided by negative 4. And it asks you for stuff up here. Ooh, this one, number 109, is kind of tricky. It says, is -3 the solution of the equation 21 divided by -3 equals 7? And it is no. 3 would be your answer, but not -3. And I like integers. I really do. I find integers to be a lot of fun because they make you think. Okay, I should have said going on, but oh well. Pause it. Pause it and do the answer. I know. Okay. Pause it and do the answers. If you need help, get help on the reading part, but I don't want to read all of them to you guys because I don't want to take forever. Okay. Pause it and do the math. Okay, it looks like we are on to section 3.4, which is operations with rational numbers. We have made it so far, guys. And I don't know, some of this stuff might even be what you'd be learning in high school by now. I think you probably go over most of this in the 7th and 8th grades, but um, we'll see. So I am going to stop it here. I'm not putting my pen away. Okay, and I am going back to my website and hitting stop. You guys all have a good day and study. There will be a couple more videos. So